Hold on
Roll,
it.
go.
There
Let
we
it
go.
roll. We're going to let it roll just a little bit longer. The Boston
Of course.
Celtics take care of business on the TD Garden Parquet, 120-95. Good evening, everybody. I'm Justin Lowe alongside my co-host, Nick Franco. And this is Celtics Talk Weekly post-game live show. Franco, the Celtics started this series off on a bang, a total blowout, wire-to-wire victory for the Celtics. They started out on a 12-2 run, and they finished 120-95. No Kristaps Porzingis for the Celtics here to open up the second-round series. No problem, Franco.
Yeah, this team has came into a new type of ball play in the past few games since Kristaps has disappeared from the lineup, and it's been a team ball oriented passing offense, and defense is what's initiating the offense for these guys, and it's now almost unstoppable for these teams. I was expecting a little bit more from Cleveland Cavaliers tonight. They have been riding the hot hand of Donovan Mitchell through these playoffs. I believe he has had 6 3-point games and 6 30-point games in a row, excuse me. And that's tying some sort of record with the NBA. And I've just seen the Celtics just being able to overcome any types of strikes that they were able to put together, and they squashed the competition that Cleveland was throwing out in the first quarter once the rotation started to work in. We have to give credit to our rotation players tonight. I mean, Al Horford playing 27 minutes tonight. It's great to see him being able to fulfill those minutes healthily, and being able to have Luke Kornet come in and be such a key rotation player. But when you're matched up against Tristan Thompson, I mean, I don't know what other results you're going to get.
Right. So this is kind of one of those matchups where the Celtics are missing their star big man, and Cleveland is also missing their big man, and Jared Allen maybe not on the same level as Kristaps Porzingis, but definitely a huge piece as to what they do there in Cleveland, especially that dominating front court when they have a healthy Evan Mobley and a healthy Jared Allen. That's a pretty dominant front court in the Eastern Conference for sure. But the Celtics make do with what they had tonight. Jaylen Brown, phenomenal job tonight, 32 points. He was just shooting spectacular, very efficient tonight from the floor. He was just making the right plays. It was also a low turnover game for him, only one turnover. Turnovers, I guess, has been his weakness throughout the postseason these past few years. Tonight, only one turnover, really played controlled, really played comfortable tonight against his best friend, Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell, on the other side, will kind of get the Cavaliers out of the way before we really go in depth and talk about what the Celtics did tonight. But Donovan Mitchell tonight caught fire late, especially in that third quarter. 33 points he finished with. That's a game high and a team high for the Cavs as well. It was like, here's where I'm kind of at, Franco. If we want to, before we really dive into our Celtics, because this is Celtics Talk Weekly, I do want to kind of touch on the Cavs. Like, this is going to be an issue throughout the course of this 7-game series for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I understand that it's only one game, but Donovan Mitchell was exhausted tonight, and you could tell it was very evident. The broadcasters kept bringing it up on TNT as well. Donovan Mitchell was just gassed. He played 37 minutes tonight, carried the load for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Darius Garland, only 14 points. I mean, Max Strus, only 5 points on 2 of 8 shooting. Karis LeVert, 2 of 6. Sam Morrell, 0 of 5. So it's like these guys helping Donovan Mitchell have to step up. They absolutely have to step up, because there's no way. And I gave Cleveland probably a little bit too much more credit than I probably should have given them, because I said that this would be a 6-game series, and it still very much could be. I'm not going to say the series is over after one game. Absolutely not. I'm not going to sit here and act like that. But at the same time, I just watched 48 minutes of the Boston Celtics versus Donovan Mitchell. And in the playoffs, Franco, That's not going to cut it.
No. And I during that game, I felt like the Celtics were just matching everything that Donovan Mitchell was putting up there. I mean, you can
Mm,
only do so much as one player, and players like getting Evan Mobley more involved, that was someone I was a little bit more concerned about. Hearing
right.
the reports about Jared Allen during the game, hearing that he's having trouble sleeping at night, and then also can't get his arm above his head. So that seems like an injury that might be a little bit more severe than expected. And if they want to have him back, they better win one of these games, because this is a very, very quick round two series. And I'm not just saying that as, as predicting a sweep, but game four is next Monday. And the it there's only a day off in between each game, so these players aren't gonna have that much time to recover, nor is Donovan Mitchell gonna have time to rest.
Right. I mean, you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers coming off of a game 7 against Orlando, and I don't know if you watched that game, but I was not impressed whatsoever with what I saw.
No.
I'm gonna cut it to you straight. Franco, and you guys know if people know me, they know I'm actually a pretty big Magic fan. Like, I really do pay attention to the Orlando Magic. That series bored me. That series absolutely bored me. And when I watched that game 7 and I watched Orlando got up 18, and then I watched Cleveland get back into it and just saw the poor shot taking, the turnovers, just the sloppiness in which it was being played by both teams. I was just not impressed with what I was seeing. And
Playoff series for league pass.
and it's like, that's not going to cut it against the Boston Celtics, the East leading Boston Celtics, the 64 win led Boston Celtics. That's just absolutely not going to cut it. So Cleveland Cavaliers have a lot to kind of go back and look on here before Thursday night, because what happened tonight, it could very much happen for another 3 more games, Franco. 4 more games if Cleveland comes out in game 2 and nails 25 3-pointers like the Miami Heat, and forces a game 5. But enough about the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Donovan Mitchell talk. Let's get to the Boston Celtics tonight, because the Celtics just from the very start just came out with this intensity. And we talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers coming off of a short day's rest, coming out of a 7-game series. The Celtics they played in a week ago. It feels like it feels longer than that,
Right.
Franco. So sometimes that amount of rest, I sit here as the fan and somebody who covers a team, and I'm like, oh, like sometimes too much rest is kind of like, you want to get the rust off. But tonight, who didn't skip a beat? It was Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown absolutely didn't skip a beat. Jaylen Brown, who I don't want to say had a terrible Miami series, but definitely had his moments, for sure, especially early on in the series. But tonight, Jaylen Brown just came out and he played with such focus and such a sense of urgency from Jaylen Brown that we can get this consistent performance out of Jaylen Brown. And this is something we've seen all season long, right? I feel like every year we see these improvements from the Jays, but I feel like this year specifically, we've seen the consistency of it, especially out of Jaylen Brown here. He finished with 32 points, and look at that efficient field goal shooting. 12 of 18, 4 of 6 from distance. He's not forcing the shots. He's taking what the defense is giving him. And if I'm being quite honest with you, he probably could have taken more than 18 shots tonight, but that's just the growth and the unselfishness of Jaylen Brown and how he involves his teammates now and how he affects the game so much off ball. We hear Rob, one of our good co-hosts here on Celtics Talk Weekly, talk about how, what can you do if you're not scoring? How can you affect the game? Jaylen Brown did score 32 points, and he affects the game on both the floor, Franco. So what did you see from Jaylen Brown tonight? And I wonder if playing against his best friend, his brother, Donovan Mitchell, gives him that little kind of oomph factor, that little I want to go out here and dominate factor.
Didn't Ian send us something that we could use later, earlier on today? I
He
think it
did.
was a picture of Jaylen Brown
In the
following
bubble.
around Donovan Mitchell from the bubble, but I think high efficiency is the way to
Mm.
look at Jaylen Brown from the from tonight. 4 of 6 from three-pointer. That's a huge mark that we need to see from him going forward, and the less shots at I think at the three-point line have been fantastic. I think that it's fantastic that he's trying to get to the rim before he's looking for that step back shot. I
Right.
think that o pretty much the contrary to what Jason Tatum is doing, so which I think is helping out both sides as they're almost opposite, play styles of each other at this moment, and I think
Mm.
being able to I think that's where this team is initiating roles where, okay, Jalen, you're gonna be the one, getting the tough shots, the contested mid-range, the one-on-one shots that Jason Tatum would be taking, but they would be reading that and turning that into a double. I think his ability to get to the rack has been unmatched for this team, and from what I've seen on the defensive side, his ability to step up and most of the when Donovan Mitchell was mostly guarded by Drew Holiday here and there most of the night, who did a phenomenal job on him, even though he scored 33. But I think Jalen Brown is just very determined for this championship this year, and I think getting him at almost the captain role is what he's taken from him from the team.
Yeah, Jalen Brown has stepped into this leadership role phenomenally. Like, think of it. Malcolm Brogdon gone, great experienced vet. Grant Williams, huge vocal guy, gone out of locker room. Marcus Smart, the biggest for the last 10
The
years,
heart.
vocal guy, the heart and the soul and the voice of the Boston Celtics, gone. Jalen Brown made that commitment, made that sacrifice in the beginning of the season. He wants to be the leader both on and off the court, vocally and performance wise. He wants to be the Boston Celtics leader, the captain. We haven't deemed any captains. Some would argue Al Horford, some would argue Jason Tatum. Throw in Jalen Brown's name in that argument, because Jalen Brown this year has really put this team on his shoulders, and is just the biggest maturity in a player that I've seen, like the biggest leap in maturity. Like, he's always been a very mature player, but it's almost like when Brad Stevens essentially wiped the house, right? Like, they got like made it to the conference finals, game 7 after a year after making it to the NBA finals, and essentially wiped out what the Celtics had. Jalen Brown said, all right, it's different here, as the Celtics say. It's different here, but we can work with it. And I want to build that, and I want to be a part of that. And that's what Jalen Brown's done. And you know what the coolest part about Jalen Brown, in my opinion, is not only is he putting up 32 on 12 of 18 shooting and 4 of 6, but he's picking up the best players. Donovan Mitchell, the Jimmy Butlers, he's picking up the Steph Currys. He wants to pick those guys up. He wants to pick the hardest matchup in the league every night. Every night he wants the toughest matchup in the game. He seeks for that. And to me, that just goes to show you how his game has just been taken to a whole other level. His mindset has been taken to a whole other level. And the Celtics are that's really going to pay off. That's winning mentality right there, Franco.
And I think mindset is a huge thing that I think is going to impact the rest of the team, because
Mm,
once this starts to rub off on Jason Tatum and he
right.
starts to hit his stretch, I think he's saving it up for when it matters most. I don't want to think this way, but I think the team almost treated tonight as a regular season game. It felt like what we watched for 82 games this season. I
Right.
feel like we're doing a post-game show in January. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
I
It
mean,
does. It does. It feels like that. It really does. But you know what? I kind of want to, I want to really go to the win tracker here and take a look at these wins, because the Celtics have 5 down, 11 left to go here in the race to 16. Look at all these games. What do all these games have in common other than the Celtics winning and dominating? Every single one of these games they've held their opponent to under 100 points. The only game they didn't was game 2 in the first round when the Miami Heat hit a franchise record 23 three-pointers. The Celtics defense, we talk about Jaylen Brown, the Celtics defense in this playoff run. And actually, let me throw up the win tracker because look at the point totals. 114, 104, 102, 118, 120. Those high 100, 114, 118, 120 in the playoffs, I don't care what year it is. That's high score. That is a high scoring game, Franco. Talk to me about this team. This Celtics team, Franco, is not only getting it done offensively, but defensively, they're holding their opponents to under 100 points, and they're dominating every single night. Is that not only is that good, Franco, but do you kind of sit here and I don't want to sound like the Boston Sports Talk Radio, like turn these blowout wins into something stupid, but is there also like kind of like a reality? Could there be like a reality check coming here for the Celtics? Like I heard TNT talk about it. They brought it up too, like the competition. Are the Celtics kind of due for one of those games where it's like they just get waxed?
I sure and this is coming from a Celtics fan. I hope they do get smacked in the mouth sooner than later. I mean, I think what Miami did in round one, I don't think that really ruffled the feathers of the Boston Celtics. I don't think that would get under their skin like that used to in other years.
Mm.
I think in last year's, you would see the Celtics take that one loss in a round and be like, "Oof, that one stung," and then it would affect into the next game, and you would see repeated habits. I think this is a completely different team from that, and I think that there's going to be a talented enough team that can go blow for blow with the Boston Celtics and be able to keep up with us in the scoring areas and have those mismatches against us on defense and be able to find those holes, whether that be coaching wise
Mm.
or just talent wise. I think the team that's been thrown out the most is the Minnesota Timberwolves, and with Jared Allen, if Jared Allen was in the rotation, the Cleveland Cavaliers are the team that emulates the Minnesota Timberwolves on the Eastern Conference the most with their lineup and the way they're styled. And I think that this could definitely still be a series, and I hope Cleveland does bring that energy when they're in those away games, and I hope that this isn't a easy sweep. I I hope that every single one of these games is earned by the Boston Celtics because when it gets down to the ECF and the finals, I think that nothing can be taken for granted.
No, not at all, because these things don't just happen. Like the Celtics are just blowing these teams, these opponents out. And here's the thing. I get it. Like, oh, Jimmy was out. Oh, Jared Allen, like all these excuses about injuries and everything. When you're a team that's competing for a title and you're a team that's expected to win the title, you need to blow these teams out. The teams that are missing their best players, the teams where there's no excuse if you lose this game. You are better than this team with or without them. You got to go out there and you have to win. And the Celtics aren't only winning, Franco, these guys are dominating. Talk about taking care of business. I remember in that first round a few weeks ago, I went on live stream after the game 2 loss, and I said, if the Celtics can go out and take these 2 in Miami, because the Celtics have had no issues in Miami, regular season, postseason, Celtics have had no issues in
Right.
Miami. That will tell me a lot about this team. What did the Celtics do? They went in Miami and they waxed in both games. Okay, you're going up 3-1. Now I'm sitting there, another live stream. I said, okay, those are a nice couple games. But now this game 5 will really tell me about this Celtics team. Are we going to get the game 5 Atlanta Hawks game? Are we going to get the game 5 Philadelphia 76ers? The game 5 Milwaukee Bucks? At home, chance to go up or close out the series and we just blow it? What did the Celtics do? Short-handed, no Kristaps Porzingis. They waxed the Miami Heat on their home court. They took care of business.
Right.
And when you compare, we want to sit here and we want to compare, like the Celtics and taking care of business and the Nuggets and, compare these teams. Denver Nuggets could have easily lost that Lakers series in 5 games. I'm dead serious. Go back and look at the lead trackers in those games. Lakers had double-digit leads, 20-point leads in almost every single one of those games, 15-point leads in almost every single one of those games. Taking care of business. It's not like they just walked through the Lakers. Look at these first 2 games against Minnesota. These first 2 games against Minnesota, especially last night, the score was 92-58 when I turned it off, Franco. I said, what the hell am I watching here? We got Coach Malone, who great coach, won the title last year. Coach Malone getting out coached by an assistant coach on the sideline. We have Jamal Murray throwing heating pads and towels on the court, getting fined $100,000. And then you look at the Celtics team. These guys are locked in. These guys mean business. These guys absolutely mean business. So when I go and I look at these games and they're taking care of the Miamis, they're taking care of the Cavaliers so far and how they're doing it on both ends of the floor, I'm sick and tired of comparing the coaches. Sick and tired of Ime Udoka. I miss Ime, or we're better off with Mazzulla. I hate that debate. Live in the now. What's going on right now? And I'll tell you right now, man, if Mazzulla ball is we get that Ime Udoka defense and we get that Joe Mazzulla offense and we can combine those on a consistent basis, it's going to look a lot like what we've seen tonight and what we saw for 5 games against the Miami Heat. Or I should say 4 games because technically 5, but we lost 1. So, Franco, this Celtics team is totally different than what we've seen in the past. I don't care who's on the other side. I don't care who's healthy and who's not. This Celtics team has taken care of business. And if you remember, last year when teams were missing their best player, Philly missing Joel Embiid, Atlanta missing DeJounte Murray, and then later on in the series, Gabe Vincent, who was one of the best players in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, right? What did the Celtics do when those guys were out? They lost games. They couldn't take care of business. They kind of relaxed and said, they're missing one of their best players. We're just going to chill. We're just going to
let Max Strus take over.
Right. And who took over tonight when Donovan Mitchell was going off and he had no help? Nobody took over tonight.
No one. 17 points was the second highest score, and that was Evan Mobley.
So
second highest score was 17 points.
This Celtics team is different. This Celtics team is historically different. And I get it. The Western Conference is tough. But to get to the Western Conference, Franco, you have to get past the Miamis and the Clevelands and the New Yorks and Milwaukees and the Indiana. Like, you have to go through these teams to get to the Denvers and the Minnesotas and the Thunders, right? So what I've seen from the Celtics, the first 6 games of the playoffs, they're 5-1 with I don't know the exact number, so don't quote me on it, but with the combined point differential of like friggin' 25 points in 6 games, just absolutely ridiculous, Franco.
Yeah, and I think that they shouldn't be looking at that objectively at any point whatsoever. They shouldn't be looking at this as a race. Oh my goodness, look how good we are. We don't even have to worry about Cleveland. Let's send and the troops and just chuck up a couple shots because we know we'll close it out in game 5. I think that being as efficient and as calculated throughout these games is necessary. I think what they've done is during the third quarter, it seems like they turn 20 into 0. The 20 becomes the new 0 for the Boston Celtics. That's the median that they need to hold, and that's what the bench is expected to add to, if not withhold. I think that you won't see this team go through those collapses. Let's say a Donovan Mitchell does go on one of those hot streaks to start a third quarter. Being able to recognize that and being able to analyze it and being able to make it audible on the spot is something that we were all over Joe Mazzulla throughout the
Mm.
regular season for, but now we're starting to see all that work starting to show off, and what he kept on talking about throughout the entire regular season was, "Oh, just wait until playoffs because we got a whole bag of tricks." I didn't know we had Harry Houdini on the coaching staff.
It's almost like do you just let Donovan Mitchell just reach into his bag and just like what he did tonight? It's like it shut all the other guys down. One guy isn't going to beat 15 guys. It's like Jordan in the first round scored 60 points game one. They just guarded Jordan, or they just let Jordan score and just guarded the other four guys on the court. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Bickerstaff's got a lot of work to do. It's and the Celtics played a perfect game either, but at the same time, what the Celtics did tonight, Christ had no answer for Derek White. Derek White is just, I mean, let's talk about him for a second, Franco, because he's my guy. I mean, he's my favorite player on the team. R.I.P. Blake Griffin, but like this Derek White has been terrific in the playoffs. Finished what, 8th in defensively player voting? Did you see that, by the way? He finished 8th. So Derek White has blossomed quite honestly, he's been the Celtics' best player in the entire postseason so far, and the most consistent player in the postseason so far. So what I've seen from Derek White, what I just absolutely love from Derek White. I mean, this guy chucks up a 28-foot heat check, and I'm totally fine if it airballs. That's how good he's doing, Franco. He's just playing with the utmost confidence, and everybody really trusts everybody. But like, I feel like with Derek White, when the ball is in his hands, he just makes every play turn out okay. So what have you liked from Derek White? Because I haven't talked to you in a little bit. I haven't been on the show in a little bit. Not just tonight. What have you liked from Derek White thus far here in the postseason?
What I've liked from Derek White is when he's on the court, it becomes all 5 players on the court are a threat to score. I like the multi
Yep.
dimensions that he brings to the game, the fact that he has absolutely no fear of getting into the inside with the bigger players, and then being able to pass it out and draw those mismatches, because now teams are not only focusing on Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as their 1A and 1B, now they are seeing Derek White as that 1C,
Right.
and it's really throwing these, teams for a tangent, and what I think is really effective about this is that it's not just, "Okay, whose night is it gonna be tonight? Okay, who's gonna score more? Who's feeling it? Who's not?" That's, decided throughout the game, and that's been decided from play to play. They're not forcing the ball to one specific player at all. I think what they're doing is getting the ball around to every single player and getting their money's worth, and I think Derek White's effectiveness is just because he's almost nearly mismatched every time, because I think in any other team, if Derek White was on any other team, you would be putting your best player against him, but you physically
Right.
can't do that against the Boston Celtics.
Right. Derek White is always in the right place at the right time. Um, go back to game 6 of last year. He's a hustle player, man. I sit here and I just laugh whenever he throws it, he shoots it and he makes it like just step back, turn around, shots, shot clock, buzzer. And I'm like, we traded Romeo Langford for this guy, Josh Richardson, Jay Rich, who was great for this team, by the way. But at the same time, you got to do what you got to do. We traded him, and then not specifically us here at Celtics Talk Weekly, but like I remember the trade deadline special. One of the conversations was, "Oh man, like we gave up a first round pick. Oh man, like people were losing it. People were calling on the radio saying, "Oh man, like the pick though." Like everybody knows what the draft pick was going to turn out to be, or what like the Celtics were already a solid team. Like late first round pick. Big whoop.
Right, 30.
So at the time, like I just remember, and I just laugh at that moment, like looking back at it. It's like, this is what we gave up for Derek White, who's time of his career, playing the best basketball of his career. He's going to be an all-star next year. There's no shot he's not an all-star. I don't know. I would be – he should have been an all-star this year, especially with the injury reserves. So, Derek White, consistently consistent. He's been the best player in my eyes in this playoff so far. Jaylen Brown might be up there, but Derek White has been phenomenal. Jason Tatum has been phenomenal, which we didn't talk about Jason Tatum too much tonight. But, I mean, to be honest with you, he didn't have the best game, but he also didn't have such a terrible game. I think his rebounding was back in the double digits again, which is great to see. That just shows me effort. I love rebounding numbers in the double digits because when you're rebounding, that means you're engaged. That means you're focused and locked in. And to me, that's important. Speaking about rebounds, Luke Cornett tonight, 10 rebounds. Talk about Kristaps Porzingis being out, right? Then in the beginning of the season, we're like, oh my God, this whole Luke Cornett thing, like, oh gosh, like we should just cut him. And then he turns out to be one of the best centers in the rotation here for the Celtics, especially in the playoffs so far. Luke Cornett tonight was terrific. He was controlling the offensive glass, getting all these second chance opportunities. Should have had 6 points. They called goaltending offensive interference in the first half. And it's bad when TNT in the national media crew admits that they got a call wrong on Boston. Go back, look at it on replay. It was a clear not goaltend. I don't know what they were thinking on that play.
Yeah.
I look closer in real time. Like I'll give them that. But Luke Cornett was phenomenal tonight, Franco. 10 rebounds, 2 blocks, 4 points. We talked about Derek White, always in the right spot at the right time. Luke Cornett around the rim. One of the better pick and roll backup centers in the league for sure. He plays that high pick and roll so well. His hands are very active around the rim. Defensively tonight was phenomenal. Really shut down Donovan Mitchell whenever Donovan Mitchell went in the paint tonight, which was important. And I also saw this with Joe Mazzulla tonight. And this kind of goes to show you how flexible. We talk about the flexibility with the Celtics depth this year, how flexible the Celtics are and how they can really, really match up well against this Cleveland team. When Cleveland threw in Marcus Morris and Tristan Thompson, their backup centers, Mazzulla was able to kind of shift smaller and go Tillman. And then short run for Thompson. Tillman goes out, sits back down. When Thompson sits down, Mobley comes back in. What does Mazzulla do? Counters with 7'3" Luke Cornett. Luke Cornett comes back into the game, pairs with Al Horford. Terrific rotations tonight by Joe Mazzulla. Luke Cornett was terrific. Why is Luke Cornett one of our best players off the bench in this postseason, Nick Franco? I mean, this is. I mean, I'm looking here and I'm watching Luke Cornett dominate the glass and getting all these blocked shots in the playoffs. I'm hearing playoff Luke in the crowd. This is a real thing.
I think what he's bringing to this team is just the fact that he's been able to accept the role that we've transitioned him into. He went from being a 3-point threat, a stretch big, into now being one of the more prominent glass cleaners and on the court. The Cleveland Cavaliers physically did not have someone who could match up with Luke Cornett. And I'm laughing right now because I'm just thinking back to me saying this during game one. If my game one self was listening to myself right now during the playoffs, he would be like, "What are you smoking?"
Right.
But I think what Luke Cornett has developed into has just been a credit to the faith that Brad Stevens has had in the rotation players that he decided to stick around with, and Joe Mazzulla and the assistant coaching staff for being able to develop him and make him have that confidence to be that backup center for the team.
Right. I mean, it's funny how and I guess it attests to this. Like it goes back to the conversation that we were having earlier about how ready this team looks and how locked in this team is, and these guys are just playing their roles to perfection so far. and they're not overdoing this. No guy is trying to be the hero. You're just seeing consistent team basketball, right? Like these guys don't just care about themselves individually. These guys care about the will to win. They know that they've fallen short, specifically these last 3, 4, 5 years, right? Since essentially since the bubble. Um, they know that they've fallen short year after year, and they know that this is their year. You just again, I know we talk about the regular season's over and the playoffs are a whole different thing, but at the same time, like you don't just win 64 games for nothing. You don't. You're a good team. I get like don't talk. I don't want to hear the Bruins talk. We're talking hoops right now. But this Celtics team is ready. This Celtics team looks locked in. And I sincerely mean that. I'm not just saying this as a biased Celtics fan. This Celtics team is on a mission, right? These guys
Yeah.
are supposed to be here, and they're playing like it, and they're dominating. They're dominating. Their 5 wins this postseason are above 20 points. Well, their one win was 14. One of their wins was 14, but they led by as much as like 31 in that game or whatever it was, 28. So it's like these Celtics are just dominating, taking care of business. You've got guys 1 through 15 just really playing their roles really well. We're talking about guys like Luke Cornett, Derek White over guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on a nightly
Next
basis.
show we'll be talking about Steve Mikhailov.
I know. Next show we'll be talking about Svi. We even got a little Kada time tonight. The Celtics Talk Weekly group chat was buzzing off the. Unfortunately, we didn't get any Jaden Springer time for our boy Xavier, but I'm sure we'll be talking about him later on in this series, especially if the Celtics keep pumping these dominating blowout wins. But it's like you can't expect this if you're the Celtics. Like I understand 5 of your 6 games have been dominating wins, but like you can't just go in and I'm not saying they do expect it, but you can't just get comfortable, right? We talk about the Celtics, at least the past Celtics getting too comfortable, getting too complacent. One thing I've learned is don't get too comfortable, don't get too complacent.
Never.
And the Celtics can't do that because if they do that, that's when they start to fail themselves, right? I feel like especially in the Eastern Conference, the only team that's going to beat the Celtics is themselves. How cliche does that sound? Pretty cliche, but at the same time, it's the truth. It's the God's honest truth. The only team that's going to beat the Boston Celtics in a 7-game series this year in the Eastern Conference is themselves. The reason I'm saying the East is because I'm not even thinking of the West right now, because you got to focus on the East to get to the West, as I mentioned earlier in the show.
Yep. And we got to focus on the Cavs.
Yeah, you absolutely have to focus on the Cleveland Cavaliers. So before we close out, we'll take another look at the win tracker here. The Celtics win their 5th win of the postseason in dominating fashion yet again, winning game 1, 120-95. That's a 25-point Celtics win. I'd say wire to wire. The Celtics did trail by 2 in the first quarter late, 23-21, but essentially the Celtics really took care of business tonight on just about every level. I do want to mention, though, before we close off here, Franco, we talk about the Celtics defense, and yes, their offense was high powered tonight. Their defense, to me, stuck out. First quarter, a little bit of a rough first quarter, 34 points. I feel like the Cavs were just running on adrenaline there from their game 7. They were really making some tough shots as well. Next quarter, what happened? Cavs only scored 15 points. They had a 15 and an 18-point quarter tonight. The Cleveland Cavaliers did. So I think that right there tells you within itself how good the Celtics defense, how solid the Celtics defense was tonight, Franco. Those teenage quarters are extremely, extremely crucial, Franco, especially in the postseason.
And we've seen them every single. We saw them almost every game with the Miami Heat. We were seeing those teenage quarters, and I think that being able to keep those stretches, it's when the Boston Celtics get hot. It's when they get those 14-0 stretches. It's being able to not let that just die off as a sugar crash. It's being able to ease that down into a consistent and steady basis, because obviously you're not going to hold a team to 0 through an entire game, but I think the Celtics team can certainly damn try.
Yeah. Listen, the Boston Celtics with a dominating win tonight, 120-95, to take an early 1-0 series lead. The Celtics will be back in action Thursday night, May 9th, 7 o'clock p.m. tip-off on ESPN for Game 2 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. It is expected that Kristaps Porzingis will be out, as well as Jared Allen for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Nick Franco, Justin Lowe, we're signing off. We'll catch you guys back here Thursday night for Celtics Post Game Live.